Okay, let me just state a couple of things just for the record.
Okay.
Today is Saturday, September 26, 2015. My name is Katherine Bynum. I'm from Texas Christian University, working with the city of Fort Worth for the Latino Americans 500 Years of History. Today we're here with Ms. Carolyn Surita, is that right?
Correct.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time and your participation in this project.
You're more than welcome.
So I guess let me go ahead and start by asking, can you, first of all, spell your last name for me and tell me when and where you were born?
My last name is spelled S as in Sam, U-R-I-T-A. I was born here in Fort Worth, Texas.
And what year?
1959.
1959. Okay.
February 10th.
And who are your parents?
My parents are Jerry F. Mendez and Esther M. Mendez from Fort Worth, also from Fort Worth.
What did they do for a living?
My dad, Jerry, was a printer by trade from Trimble Tech High School, graduated in the class of 1955, and he worked to be a printer till 77. Then he went to be a groundskeeper for the softball fields for the city of Fort Worth, and there he retired. And his second part-time job he had was he was an umpire for the city of Fort Worth. And we just recently lost him in July.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. So anyway, and then mother, she was a homemaker. She stayed home till 1970 when my sister was born, the last of all 5 children. And they had to go to work because she was a sick baby, and she worked for the Fort Worth ISD. And she got on with one of those programs that help, the moms to get back to school. And she stayed with the school district for about 25 years, and she retired from JP Elder. She was an attendance clerk the whole time there at Elder.
And what does an attendance clerk do?
Attendance clerk in your school districts, you have, your principal, vice principal. She took the attendance of the classrooms, where the teachers brought their files, and the kids were here, and the kids that weren't here. And it was her job to keep up with the attendance and to get the absentee list out so that the kids wouldn't catch them skipping if they were. And she did that for many years there at Elder.
And are your parents both from Fort Worth themselves?
My father was born here in Fort Worth in 1935, and my mother was born in Dallas, Texas in 1937.
Okay. And what part of Dallas was she from?
The west side.
West side, okay. And what about your father?
My father was born in the north side. He lived in the north side. I believe back then they were born at home, so he grew up in the neighborhood called the Loma.
The Loma?
The farthest end of north side.
Okay.
And mother grew up in West Dallas, the part where the tornado hit in 1957, 58, something like that.
And she has memories from that?
Yes, they do.
Oh my goodness.
They tell the story of where they were dating, and that the tornado hit Dallas.
Your mom and your dad were dating?
At the time that the tornado hit. And no lights, no nothing back then, no TV. They lived in a poor section of town, and here come these headlights through the light. And it was my dad coming to see if she was okay. And that's a story that they always tell.
Do you know how they met?
They met through a church. My daddy was a Catholic, and my mother was a Baptist. But mother did a lot of Baptist functions and socials, and back then they were called socials, I guess, for the kids to go to. And he had his best friend, George Sepulveda, from the north side, and he was of that faith also. And he invited Daddy to go to a function in Dallas, and that's how they met.
And do you know kind of the history of your grandparents, maybe where they came from? Were they from Mexico, or what generation you are?
My maternal grandparents came from Mexico. They were what they were called, the religion. And not either one of those. Evangelists, and they were musicians. They were musicians, and my grandmother's siblings, they all played an instrument and this and that, and they migrated up from Mexico. What part, I have no idea. We did find recently that she did come through the border of Laredo. We found her green card or whatever card to come across. My cousin has that. The ones that live in Dallas have that. But my grandparents from here, my paternal grandparents, the 2 brothers came. My grandfather Aurelio and his brother Federico came up through the railroad or whatever. They came into Texas to get away from Pancho Villa.
Okay.
Because
so
it was
the Mexican Revolution.
And what part, I have no idea. But they went back to go get their siblings, their sisters, because the story was that he would raid the villages and take the women. That story. That's what we heard. And they came and brought their 5 sisters back to Texas, and they ended up here in Fort Worth.
So that would have been in the 19-teens then?
Because they always say Grandpa was born around 1880, 1890 or something like that. My aunt took all that information with her when she went to the grave, but she was real good about it because we have a large family here in Fort Worth from that side of the end of the family. And that's the reason that they came here, was to escape.
Yeah. And so why did they pick Fort Worth? You said something about the railroad?
The railroad, when the cousins came into to Texas, through the border, however, whichever, I really don't know how they came in, but they would get on with the railroad, and wherever the railroad took them to migrate them, and some of them worked the fields, wherever the railroad took, or like that. And this is how they just migrated up north.
Okay. And so you were born in 1959, and what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in La Loma.
Okay.
My grandfather apparently was some type of made deals, whether at the bars or not. He was an older man when he met my grandmother. They were like 20 years apart. Okay. So by the time my grandmother and they started having the children, he was already an established man, and he had where he hung out at the bars and stuff like that. And whether he received land or bought land, I don't know, negotiated land. He bought several plots there on the 3600 block of North Houston and on Clinton. There's a plot. He had 5 sisters, okay? And each time they say that a sister would get married, he'd give them a plot, a piece of land. So he lived right here. His sister lived back here. His sister lived on the next block, and he had 2 more sisters living on the same block. So they all grew up as a community. So these people lived within a 5-block area. So when Daddy got married, they moved Mother to Fort Worth. They lived in the same neighborhood within a 3-block area. And then when Daddy built his house, it was just next block down. So we lived on the 3700 block of North Ellis, right next to the airport. And that's where we grew up.
And you had all of your family around you.
Yes, we did.
So, I mean, what was that kind of like? I mean, did you often go to your aunts and uncles' houses for...
No, not. These were my daddy's cousins.
Oh, okay.
That generation. But my tias that lived there, my father's sisters lived in the same neighborhood. So yeah, we go visit them. I had a tia that lived in Diamond Hill, and then T. Carmen always was at Grandma's house because she was a single lady. And then in that neighborhood was Guadalupe Church, the Catholic Church Guadalupe, and that was just like 4 blocks up on Ross. And we go to Jamaicas all summer. But before then, what my youngest recollection, there was a piece of land behind us, and these people, the people in the neighborhood, they would have their Jamaicas there too. So it was a party neighborhood, and so we just stayed there. We stayed there. That was our community. And Winn-Dixie, well, it was called Buddy's back then, was right there on the 3300 block of North Main. So that's where you went to go to your store, and you stayed in your community.
What did your house look like when you were growing up?
Mine was a modern house. We were the rich people. My father had saved his money to build this house. It's a 3-bedroom home. I believe it's 800 square feet because my mother still lives there.
800 square feet?
Yeah, compared to today's standards.
And you had
four kids and my parents. Yeah, 3-bedroom. Yeah, And so they had their living room, their kitchen, the little dining room, and the 3 bedrooms and the bathroom. Daddy was a tightwad, they said, or he had to save his money because of the type of lifestyle he had. Even though Grandpa had provided a home for them. My mother says that where my grandparents lived didn't have indoor plumbing till my tia graduated from high school, and she got the money to try to. Yeah, that's
So
you're talking late 50s. T. Carmen graduated from Northside High School in '54, so yeah. So when Mom and Dad saved enough money to buy the house for $5,000, get this, $5,000 on 2 lots. Mother made sure that they had indoor plumbing, but that the water heater was in its closet by itself. Now we all take for granted the water heaters are different, but according to this floor plan of this home they bought, you could have it either in the kitchen or in the hallway, and Mother chose the hallway because she didn't want it in the kitchen. Because I don't know if y'all have seen older homes that somehow the water heater's in the kitchen. She didn't want it that way, and so according to these standards, my parents were comfortable. They weren't rich, but they were comfortable. And this is the house we grew up in. Yeah. And my mother, like I said, stayed home till 1970.
And what schools did you go to?
Washington Heights Elementary, there in the north side, right there off of Long. Then went to J.P. Elder, further north side. And then we went to Trimble Tech High School. back then it was a technical high school, and back then it was considered that we learn a trade, so when we got out of school, we would make our own livings. That's where my father was raised. My mother went to Crozier Tech in Dallas, and that was her trade too. So we all were told that, not told, but that was just part of our life. No, we didn't know anybody that went to college. No, it wasn't encouraged. It was just you go to school, you learn a trade, you go make money. That's the way it was.
Were there a lot of Hispanics in the school? I mean, what was the makeup of
Trimble Tech at the time was Anglo Americans, a lot of Hispanics, a few blacks. Okay. The elementary I went to was whites and Hispanics.
Is your first language Spanish?
No, it's English.
It's English? Do you speak Spanish?
I can understand it. I cannot speak it because my grandparents didn't speak English. So they spoke to me in Spanish, and I would return in English, and that's how we communicated. You know, I never picked it up. Wasn't told I had to learn it, and the reason because of that is because when my father and my parents went to school, they were told they had to speak nothing but English. So if they spoke Spanish, they get reprimanded. So they knew in order to get ahead in this life was to adopt the language, incorporate it, you know. And it kind of died out. My daddy didn't know too much Spanish by the time he died. I mean, his dialect wasn't there anymore. He had lost it. But my mother, working with J.P. Elder and the Hispanic people, the Mexicanos that were coming into Texas, she kept it. So she's more fluent, you know. So, but I don't speak it real well. I'll have to think about it real hard. But I can get it going if I have to, when I have to kick in, you know. and maybe it's not ignorance. It's not don't want to. It's just that's just my makeup.
You can't choose what language you decided to hear first.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And any of your brothers and sisters, do they speak Spanish at all?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. My sister works for the Fort Worth ISD in the food services, so she's really kicked in her Spanish. Has really kicked in. My brother Jerry, it depends. And Charles is the same way. You know. Yeah. When we have to, we have to.
Where do you fall in the sibling order? I forget.
I am the oldest.
You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest of 4 children.
Okay. So, all English spoken at home. Did you ever feel like that divided you from maybe some other Latinos in the community?
Yes, and I've been told that too. Yes, I'm told that. They said, well, you think you're better than most people. I said, no, I'm not better than you. This is just my upbringing. Now, when I was in school, I took Spanish. I failed because I didn't do it. It was the proper Spanish. I was used to the Spanish. I heard it, around my grandparents. And there's nothing wrong with me still trying to pick it up or learn it or read it, learn how to do it, There's nothing wrong with that. I just choose to, I'm here. This is the first language,
So what year did you graduate high school?
1977.
77. And then what did you decide to do after you graduated?
I was at Tech High School. The big class to go to was data processing, the computers. Nothing like these things we have now. So it was the type of data processing where you had to tell the machine what to do. Back then the girls were taught key punching, and that's as far as you're going to go. The boys were taught how to program the computers, and they had the more deal. But I thought I was going to conquer the world just by doing keyboarding. Key punching.
So you knew it was very sex segregated. That,
yes.
Women were to do the key punching, and then the men were supposed to program.
I wasn't the type of female that saw outside the box, or went. I was just in the box and I stayed there. I was more comfortable maybe, or I just didn't push the button like some of my friends, that I went to school with. I wasn't the favorite person, biggest. I wasn't my teacher's favorite, but me and my friend Cindy Medrano. We went to state. Back then, it's not VICA. It's the trade schools, like their how do you say it? We would have projects we had to compete locally and statewide and national. Okay, me and my friend Cindy Medrano went all the way to the top. She did one keystroke mistake at the state level, and I beat her, and I went to nationals. So, because it was just a human error, I went to nationals, and that particular year, nationals was in Houston, Texas. Whoop-oo! So I got to go to Houston. So, state champion of Texas in 1977 for keyboarding, so that was my title to fame.
So how long were you doing your keyboarding?
The goal of this tech high school was to get you a job before you graduate. That was their goal and probably their requirements. So we all had jobs by February of our senior year, and we worked part-time at night. I worked at night from 5 to midnight and still went to school full-time. I worked there till about 1978. When I had gotten married in the summer of 78 and had a child. And back then, I thought you quit working and you stayed home with your children, duh. And so I quit work. Okay. I never went back to it. I never went back to it. I stayed home for, I guess, tell me how I was about 5 years old.
Mm-hmm. So you said you got married in 1978?
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet him?
He was a high school sweetheart. I met him in school. Yep, met him in school.
Together?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a child?
Mm-hmm.
That same year?
Yes.
Okay. Boy or girl?
A little girl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Carolyn Surita.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
She's 36 now? She'll be 36 this year? Something like that, 37? I don't know. She'll be 37 this year in November. Yes, uh-huh.
All right. And where did you guys decided to settle? What part of Fort Worth?
We got married. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got married in May. She was born in November. And we lived right here by what's now Cook's Children's Hospital, okay, in a rent house. Mm-hmm. And then they told us that they were selling the rent houses. And so we started looking for a permanent home. And my husband's family had just came to Fort Worth from Eagle Pass, Texas in 1970, around 1972. And so Daddy, I didn't know this till him recently, that Dad had really told my husband, if you're going to make an investment, you need to buy a house, if nothing else. So we were looking for homes, and we found a home over here off of Ryan Avenue between West Berry and Biddison. Okay, we live over there by Pasco High School. At Mama's Pizza, and we've been there ever since.
Yeah.
We've been there. So technically, I grew up in the north side. I got married. They moved me to the south side. And so those are the only two homes I've ever lived in.
Can you tell me, from my understanding, there seems to be a little bit of a divide with the Latino community in Fort Worth, like north side versus south side.
Correct.
Can you describe maybe what that tension is? What's making that difficult to kind of connect?
Oh, really? Well, yes, we always knew that there was people in South Side. Oh, they were the bad people.
Oh, okay.
They were the bad people. They were the rough people. Then you always heard people from Rock Island. They were even worse. Don't go to Rock Island. They were bad people.
Is that also on the south side?
No, it's right here by downtown.
Okay.
Right here and it was called the Rock Island because that's where the Rock Island Railroad was.
Oh,
and that's where the people where they lived, they worked there. They just settled in that community, where National Elementary is now, and that was a bad part. And of course, you got that on the west side too, where the other railroad station is. It was just always that way. We just always knew that, like you said, like I told you earlier, the family lived in this one area, didn't go out that much area, so you just stayed in that area. We had cousins that lived in Southside, and for us, that was a long way to go, but we would go over there because the Juarez cooked real good. When she had her parties, we went over there to eat. Why, I don't know. We all came together in school because we all went to tech. We all had to come in from both areas. You met friends, became, most of us found that's where we found our other halves at,
Right.
And so, why, I don't know. That I don't know. I can't answer that, As a young person, didn't hold it. I got along with everybody. I feel like it, And why, I don't know. I guess I can't answer that question. But now as an older person, it doesn't matter where we come from. We're all the same. We all either grew up poor, grew up rich, had a bad person. There's always a black sheep in the family, and we're all just one whole. The only thing I have, even though I've lived here a lot all my life and didn't go to college, how do you say it? There's a world out there. I wish these young kids would see it. I really would, because there's so much, I don't know what y'all's background are, but I wish these kids would just get out and see the world. These gang things, I understand they were part of my life. I'm told I come from the worst neighborhood there is also, but yet, a lot of us came out strong. Not all of us ended up in jail, but I don't know. I can't answer that question. Why?
You feel like there's a lot of gang violence in your neighborhood that you
Yes,
live in?
yes,
Really?
there is right now. Yeah,
there's right now.
Right now.
What about when you were growing up?
I didn't see it. It wasn't part of my life. my parents weren't that way, or I wasn't associated with people. My brothers can tell you a different story. My brothers can tell you a whole big different story. But me and my brothers and sisters are 7 years apart, 7 to 9 years apart. So I didn't see what they saw. I was already out of the neighborhood, you know. And then me and my sister are 11 years apart. So whatever she went through, I didn't see that. You know, I was already at home having having my own family. So I don't know why. I really don't know why. You know, but where I live now, you do see it, you do hear it. You see the graffiti on the fences and stuff like that. You know, I'm not saying I'm lucky. We just taught our children right and wrong because, you know, we do have 3 children, and they never were involved with gangs. They did well in school. You know, did well in sports. You know, just a positive. You know, some people say, "Oh, my kids don't want to graduate from high school." Well, what other goal do they have? You know, their goal should be to finish college, not just to finish high school. You know, that's just always been our education's always been important to our kids, or just, you know, to our family.
You said you had 3 children. What are their names and ages?
Carolyn Surita, she's she'll be, well, right now she's 36. She'll be 38 in November. She lives in Austin, Texas. She works for the state of Texas in the health department. Ronnie, she graduated from Northside in 1997. 97. Ronnie graduated from Pasco High School in the year 2000. He's an assistant manager with Monarch Paint, and both of those kids aren't married. You know, they just don't want to have they don't want to get something else. And then the youngest one, Carolyn Cortez, she's the one that got married and had a baby on us. And so right now, she graduated from Pasco in 2010, and her husband joined the military, and right now they live in Hinesville, Georgia, out of Savannah, Georgia. And oh, please, she's supposed to graduate from the University of Georgia Southern University in December. In December? And in marketing.
Oh, that's coming up.
Oh, yes, so we got excited. We get back to go down there. And of course, they had a baby, and Emiliana Cortez is 13 months.
Were you ever part of any PTA organizations?
Yes, I was a president of George C. Clark Elementary in South Fort Worth, where the kids went in 1984 or 5. I put on there.
85.
Okay.
Yeah.
And prior to that, we were just it was a group of housewives. We all stayed home. We all volunteered at school. You know, we all held different offices, you know, through the years that we were there. And just a great time. And I don't know if a lot of us talk back about it now, because George C. Clark just had their 100th anniversary of existence of PTA. They're one of the oldest schools in Fort Worth. How we all stayed home, and how we all had that volunteerism because of our mothers that had stayed home and helped and cooked and baked, you know, because some kids don't have that background. You know, their parents had to work, or their mom had to work. They don't have that luxury. And so we all said that, you know, yeah, we were lucky, yeah. We had good men to take care of us, that we could stay home.
So you felt like when you became a mother, that was what you wanted to do?
Yes.
Because of what your mother had done?
Yes.
She was able to stay home with you?
And see, my sister's different. My mom had to go to work when she was born. So my sister doesn't have that, I'm not saying nurture, because mother did everything she had to, but she didn't have mother home with her. So in her case, when she started having her family, all my sister has worked her whole life too. So, you know, we have 2 different worlds, you know, 2 different worlds. But yes, going back to that, yes, George C. Clark was a fun time. We had a great time, you know. We did a lot of things for George C. Clark, and it's really interesting. So that's what we did. That's how I was involved with the PTA there.
Any other kinds of community organizations or programs or anything that you've been involved in Fort Worth that you wanted to talk about?
Leah, when you say it like that, you know, surely I felt like I had a life, but, you know, when you have to put it down on paper, I don't know. My daughter, Karen, she was involved at Northside High School with a lot of programs, okay? And through those programs, you know, she asked me to volunteer and do different things. So when she got involved with MACE, Mexican American something, they needed judges. Whoa, how do you say this? MACE is an organization that helped young Latinos here in Fort Worth to get a head start. Some of them, like Karen, was the first generation to go to college, okay? And they helped them, prepared them to get to, you know, it's a different atmosphere, totally altogether, and how to prepare for that and how to speak. When she got involved with that organization, they asked for volunteers to judge different categories, because it teaches the kids how to speak, how to pair different stories, and there was another deal that they did. And so I go and help judge, and help judge like that. And stuff like that. Just a lot of volunteer. Just really did help. Never worked on a committee other than PTA, which I'm proud of. No, I always thought that my family life was more important than to do that. I don't know why. I'm not a shy person, but I just, just didn't. Just didn't. Like I know there's some Hispanic women organizations here in Fort Worth. I thought you had to have a career or a degree. That's ignorance probably on my part. I just, just stayed home. And I stayed home. I've worked ever since Mija was. I've worked full time since '85. So I had my career too.
What did you do in '85?
I went to go work for Lennox Industries.
Okay.
Lennox Industries air conditioning company. My aunt Teresa Castillo worked for Lennox off of 121 when the factory first came to Fort Worth in the '60s. And I had been home with the babies, and she goes, "Oh, we have an opening. You really need to come." And data processing. I said, "That's my forte. I can do that part-time." And I went to go work for them, And then she goes, "You really need to work full-time. You need those benefits." Oh, Terry, I just want to stay home with the kids, She goes, "No." And then I applied for a full-time job, and I got it. And I've been there ever since, just about. So that was my career, I got in with data processing, so. And just moved into the air conditioning sales. I sell parts and equipment now, So that's just the way.
Is there a union that is with this company?
No.
Union?
No. I work in the like a parts, like a storefront, and we're not unionized.
Oh, okay.
Back then, where my aunt worked, it was union, but she wasn't union.
Okay.
Okay. And it shows you how Lennox came into the city demographics because they had to meet their equal opportunity quota. There were 2 Mexicanas, 2 Negritas, and that was their
that was their.
They met their quota that way. It's just the way it was back then in the '60s. Wow.
Crazy.
I know it. That's the way it is. So that's how I got started working. So if it hadn't been for that, I don't know if I really would have gone to work.
You're still there today?
Yeah. Well, I left for 10 years and I came back.
Okay. So. Why the 10-year break?
They had closed my shop up. They were changing different things, so they laid us off. I went to go work for independent dealer, Lennox dealer, and then I left after a year and a half. And then Sprint PCS came into Fort Worth, the mobile. They were brand new, back in '82 or so. So I got on there, customer service, and I just didn't like the mentality where you were just a worker, like that. I needed to be outside. You were governed by your hours. You couldn't ask for off. It had to be approved. I just didn't like that. I just didn't like that stickiness. So I got out and I started working in the apartment industry, selling parts and equipment. And that's been my forte, really. I enjoy it. I like to talk to different people. I can put a toilet back together. It goes all the faucets and the toilet pieces. I learned how to sell that, so I can do that real well. So that's my claim to fame. I drive a forklift right now, because my equipment in my warehouse.
Right.
So, I'm very, very versatile. I like that kind. I don't know how I would work in an office setting right now in my time.
Right.
If I had to, I guess, if I wanted to eat, I could. So we do what we have to, right? So, but yeah, that's been my life, We're all proud of our children, Try to express how important education is to them and, not that they wouldn't work as hard as we have to. Blue collar, I guess what we're considered, because my husband paints cars for a living. And you're out with the elements. His with the weather elements. I'm inside. I'm fortunate that way. Just try to get them to use their brain, and it's been real good. It's been they did real well. They've done well.
Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yes, I do.
Sure.
Yes, I do. My paternal grandmother, Perfecta Mendez, like I said, she, matter of fact, worked for Mrs. Salinas' brother, Dick Salinas. Dick Salinas owned a lot of bars and clubs on the south side. And my grandmother was a very good cook, and she would work in his restaurants or his bars and feed the people at night. I don't know if anybody's told y'all, if you've heard the stories, with the mill factory, the steel mill in Southside, along Hempa were a lot of bars and cafes. Well, that was her forte to cook. And I didn't know this. I found out later as she was older that she cooked in these places. So in 1963 or 4, she opened her own cafe called the Mendez Cafe on North Main Street, next door to Ayala Barbershop. And she ran that place, I guess, till because when I went to Elder, my daddy would always drop me off and she'd feed me a taco and then I walked to Elder. So she kept it for several years after that. And that was her, very important history for our family. She also, we just had a September 16th parade, downtown. I missed it because I went to work, that Mr. Salinas was always a part of, and she rode in those parades. How my grandmother always found a convertible, I have no idea, but she always rode in a convertible. She had her Mexican costume, the traditional dress and everything, and we had pictures of her waving. To make a full circle, Robert Morris and Susan Morris that I met through the PTA at George C. Clark. Something came up and she goes, I have this old picture of my husband in a parade, a Mexican parade, and this lady sitting on his convertible. I go, let me see that picture. And sure enough, that was my grandmother. So her husband had the convertible that my grandmother, and how he knew her was because of South Fort Worth, because Robert lived across from OLV. So I guess he'd visit those places where she worked. Not to be ugly, they worked beer joints, simple as that. They were beer joints, and that's where she worked. That's how she made her money. Because my grandparents were 20 years apart, And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, worked for the packing house in Northside Stockyards, And so when he would get off, the beer joints, and he was, because he lived to be about 80 or about 90 years old. He died the month I got married. He died the month before I got married. Yeah. There's a lot of history. We also, if you don't mind me keep on talking, because of the story that I told you about my grandfather earlier, that he had his 5 sisters and they all grew up in the same neighborhood. It's a large family, and yes, some of them are spread out, but most of them live in the city of Fort Worth. The story goes, it has to have been, it's over 25 years, probably 30 years now. We've been having annually the Mendez family reunion every year at Labor Day weekend. And we used to have it at La Key because that's where we fit, but now we don't. They tore it down, so we've had to have other places. But the story goes that there were 2 cousins that were dating in high school. Okay, they didn't know they were cousins, and then when the guy showed up to the girl's house, the mom goes, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I'm, here to see so and so." And so, well, y'all can't be dating. Y'all are cousins.
Like first cousins?
Second cousins. Second cousins. Okay. So after that, the Rosie Delgado organized with her cousins, that generation, a reunion so that we could meet people, see who's who, and this and that. So it's been a continuing thing for all these years since then. And I knew certain cousins because I went to Tech with them. And of course, my father's generation knew each other because they were that first generation. Then you have my generation. I knew some of them. But when they got there to the reunion, we were color-coded. The Mendezes are green, the Valles are blue, the Matas are red, and the Perez are yellow. So when you would know which branch you belonged to. But as you see these people there, then you recognize them from school. Well, I didn't know you were my cousin. So my children, that happened to them also, son going to Pasco, Mija going to Northside, and they would recognize each other from school, and they found out how they were cousins. Now, this next generation of children, the smaller kids, I don't know how that's going to pan out. We all know that we go there to have fun, to play bingo, to have to do certain functions. It's going to be interesting how that 1, 2, 3. The 4th generation will understand who we are and why we do this, other than just to have a good time on Labor Day weekend and to go swimming. Now, we do have pictures of our loved ones that we've lost, and that picture plaque keeps getting bigger and bigger. We've had trees in the past to show how we've grown and how the different branches that we are. But it'll be interesting to see how we'll continue this, because it was very hard this year without my daddy. It was real hard. That's just life. but it'll be interesting to know. It'll be interesting to know. We just got to find a way how the younger kids will know how we're all associated with each other. I guess that's it. I think.
Well, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you.